Expansion, something I talk an awful lot about on this channel, and in the US and Canada it's a hot topic. I will mention MLB expansion a little, but mostly I want to talk about the baseball world altogether. In what places should they expand, and where shouldn't they? More teams are better, right? Yeah, you get the game spread out to more cities, more people get the chance to take in a game and support a team, more players get the chance to play at the top level. But you gotta make sure there's a city that can support a team. You don't want an expansion team playing in front of a mostly empty stadium, where the money collected at the gate isn't enough to cover the players' salaries. Baseball is doing fine around the world. It's only getting bigger. Nothing wrong with the game itself. But there are other issues when considering expansion. Population, incomes, league stability, talent pool available. Expansion can be really complicated. So today let's look at 15 baseball leagues around the world and determine which ones are ready for expansion and which ones are not. And as always, if you disagree, leave a comment. If you live in one of these countries, you might know something I don't. I've done my homework, but I know very well that there's no replacement for actually being in the country and living among its people. So here we go. We start with Major League Baseball, and the answer to the question, should they expand, is a very enthusiastic yes. MLB absolutely should expand. It's been 26 years since the last expansion. In that time, the U.S. population has grown by over 30 million people, more than 10%. Canada has grown even more, percentage-wise. NFL and NHL have already expanded to 32 teams. No reason for MLB to be stuck at 30. The only reason in recent decades not to expand has been lagging attendance figures. After record-setting attendance in the 2000s, the 2010s were plagued with year after year of declining figures. But now we're seeing a turnaround, a 6-year high in 2023, and the numbers remaining constant in 2024. People want to go out and watch baseball. Expansion should happen, and it will happen. Not a matter of if, but when. Likely by the end of this decade. Will it be Nashville, Salt Lake City, Austin, Portland, or somewhere else? We'll have to wait and see. NPB in Japan, the second highest level of professional baseball, second richest behind MLB in the world. Players are coming from there every year lately and succeeding in MLB. No shortage of talent there. The league is close to all-time highs in attendance. Baseball is still easily the most popular sport in the country. Nationwide, too, not so regional like it is in the U.S. 12 teams presently. They've been stuck at that number since the 1950s. So, should they expand? I would answer that with a great big no. Anyone who says that NPB should expand just isn't aware of how bad Japan's situation is with its shrinking population. The country lost 700,000 people in 2022, 800,000 in 2023. The rate of decrease keeps going up. They could lose up to 1 million people this year, and shortly after, 1.2 million, which would mean 1% of the country's population disappearing annually. All the big cities already have NPB teams. Any smaller city they expand to would have trouble keeping up with the NPB average, which is about 27 or 28,000 per game. And every year after the inaugural season, the population of the local community would get smaller and smaller, year after year. If expansion were going to happen in NPB, it should have been 40 years ago. It would be a terrible idea to try it out today. But what about neighboring Korea? The KBO just absolutely crushed its old attendance record. The league is more popular now than it's ever been before. New, larger stadiums are in the works to satisfy the growing demand. And with 10 teams presently, an expansion to 12 would allow them to go to 2 6-team divisions. But I've got to throw cold water on this one too. A big no for the KBO. They just expanded from 8 to 10 teams about a decade ago, and now have 1 KBO team per 5 million residents. And Korea's got the same issue of shrinking population as Japan, lowest birth rate in the world. And in Korea it's happened more suddenly, with a more severe drop in the birth rate. We're not seeing the effects so much now, but it's going to hit hard in the near future. So let's enjoy this boom in attendance, but let's not get carried away. The present is not the future. And the other big league in Asia, the CPBL of Taiwan. Again, gotta say no. The population issue isn't so bad in Taiwan. But the thing is, expansion's already happened. 4 teams in 2019. They added a 5th team a few years ago. A 6th team joined this year. 6 teams, 120-game schedule on an island of 23 million people. Seems like they've got the right numbers. Let's not overdo it. Now let's look at a league where teams do not play in front of large crowds. The Australian Baseball League has 6 teams averaging around 1,000 fans per game. No plans for larger ballparks. Nothing that would indicate a baseball boom is about to get underway in the country. Just a small league with enough sport to ensure that it keeps going. So, should they expand? Yes, because if you've been following the ABL, you'll know that they did expand 6 years ago, and it worked. a team of mostly KBO prospects in the Australian city of Geelong, called Geelong Korea, and one team in New Zealand, the Auckland Tuatara. The teams had support. Auckland had one of the highest single-game attendance marks with over 4,000 for a playoff game, but 2 missed seasons due to COVID took its toll. Not playing all that time, the teams lost money. They both came back for the 2022-23 season, but called it quits after that. If the ABL does want to expand to 8 teams again, I would suggest those 2 cities once again. They have ballparks they can use, and it's already worked there once. Only thing I'd do differently is have the Geelong team filled with local players. Okay, looking at the Caribbean Winter Leagues now, starting off with Lidom in the Dominican Republic, where a lot of Dominican MLB prospects and some older MLB players play in the winter. So you know there's no lack of talent there. Lidom is the strongest of all winter leagues. That's why they've been winning the Caribbean Series more than any other country in recent years. Population of 11 million in the Dominican Republic, growing at a healthy rate of more than 1% every year, one of the highest GDP growth rates in the Western Hemisphere in the last 2 decades. Lidom's last expansion was in 1996, so it's been almost 3 decades. Expand? Yes, it's time. The country's getting bigger. Baseball is by far the biggest sport there, and it's not losing any steam. They'll want to expand to 8 teams to keep it at an even number, so every team can play every day. Don't know what cities the new expansion teams would play in. What they really need, though, before expansion can take place are new stadiums. They've already got 2 teams sharing one stadium, 6 teams, 5 venues. And those 5 ballparks are pretty old. 3 of them built in the 1950s, the other 2 in the 70s. So while 2 new expansion teams right now would be great, perhaps the first thing they need is a new stadium boom. LBPRC Puerto Rico. No. 5 years ago they had 4 teams, now they've got 6. And that's with ongoing economic problems and declining population, not to mention the league's low attendance figures. This one is very much a no. LVBP Venezuela. No. The economic problems and people leaving the country is well known. As far as baseball, it's been pretty stable though. 8 teams in the league since 2007, playing with the same teams every winter, 56-game schedule. Attendance is just fine. 2 new good-looking ballparks have opened their doors in recent years. They've already begun the process of replacing their aging stadiums. So the league is doing just fine. But even in the best of times, 8 seems like the right number for a country of this size. Expansion? No. LPB Colombia, yes. 5 years ago there were 6 teams. Every year since then, only 4. They could expand to 6 teams again or just 5. But what I'd really like to see is a new expansion team in the capital city of Bogota. The 4 existing teams are all on the northern coast, and that's the region of Colombia where baseball has long been restricted to. I think they can make a team in Bogota work. Only problem is it might take some time to build up a fan base, and the team would lose money for the first couple years. And teams in the LPB usually don't have much money to burn through. But if there's someone out there with the patience and enough money for a long-term investment, they should really make this happen. ProBase in Panama. No. Last year they played a 1-month season with only 3 teams. The 4th team had to sit it out. The season never lasts more than 6 weeks. The teams often change. Attendance is low. Country's population is small. A hard no on this one. LBP in Nicaragua. No, but not a strong no. The league's been quite stable. They've had 5 teams the last 5 years. It was 4 teams before that. Attendance looks pretty good, and they probably want a 6th team so they can have every team play daily. Maybe then they could squeeze in more games. Currently they only play a 32-game schedule. But given the country's size, 5 teams seems like the limit. Then again, I didn't expect them to add a 5th team 4 years ago, but they did. And it's worked. So I could be wrong here. LMB Mexico. No. This league has swelled from 16 just a few years ago to 20 for this season. And even when there were 16 teams, there was a lot of talk about contraction, as smaller market teams struggled financially. That problem hasn't gone away. They need to make sure they can keep those 20 teams operating and not try and think about adding new ones. If they can make it work with 20, that'll be just the right number. With 130 million people in Mexico, that's 1 team per 6.5 million residents. Any more than that is too much. That was the Summer League. Now we look at the Winter League in Mexico, the LMP. And the answer here is no. This is the more popular of the 2 leagues and the stronger of the 2. You really don't want too many teams in this league. You want an elite competition because the champion of this league represents Mexico in the Caribbean Series. It expanded from 8 to 10 teams in 2019. Now with the Summer League up to 20 teams, they've got that nice 2-to-1 ratio back again, where only the top half of Summer League players make it onto rosters in the winter. Combining LMB and LMP, that makes 30 teams. Same as Major League Baseball, in a country less than half the size. That is enough. Cuban National Series. No, 16 teams in a country of 11 million is more than enough. Each part of the country is well represented. No need for more teams. Cuban Elite League. No, just like with the LMP in Mexico, the whole point is for a more elite competition, so more is not better. And the new setup is 6 teams from the Cuban National Series get promoted to the Elite League, so they wouldn't be getting a new expansion team anyway. 6 seems like the right number, maybe even reduce it to 4. And that's it. I won't talk about countries with amateur leagues, they can add as many teams as they want. I also didn't mention independent leagues of North America or Japan here. I like to think more independent teams is always a good thing, but I don't have enough information to properly judge their situation. If you know better than I do, leave a comment. Anyway, that's all for this one. Until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya!